Hey everyone, and welcome to another video where we again have to educate the general public that if you want to know how to properly power scale fiction, then they shouldn't be taking any lazy routes when attempting to do so. And one of these being labeling fictional characters being so powerful that they are supposedly beyond fiction itself. And with me today, I got my good boy Jester here. Say hello, Jester.
Yo, what's up, guys?
Alrighty, Jester. So, why don't you give the audience a little rundown about who you are?
Yeah, basically, I'm a comic debater in the Discord debating community. I go around, I read a lot of comics, mainly DC. But when I started dabbling a little into Marvel, I started noticing that this Gwenpool wave, or like these wave of Gwenpool debaters that claim that she's out of fiction, have been going like around rampant, even to the point where they would ban her from like debating tournaments. I just thought it was really lame, and a lot of stuff that they were using looked a little fishy. So I dove into it myself. I read into like the Gwenpool comics, and I thought a lot of her scaling was like really blatantly disingenuous.
Right. So just as Jester said, right, there's gonna be a couple characters that we're gonna be talking about in this video that are famously deemed as characters who have been like beyond fiction, and as he said, like they've been banned from tournaments because people just don't want to deal with them. And one of the most famous of them all being Gwenpool. So why don't you just tell us a little bit about Gwenpool and what she's actually like in the comics before we get into what people say about her.
Right. So Gwenpool in reality is literally just, an antisocial nerd from like a comic book world where they view heroes as just comic book characters. It's the same way that Earth Prime works in DC. It's not fiction transcendent of the verse. It's just another Earth where, or another reality where the heroes are just comic book characters. It doesn't make her stronger in any of them. We see that in several instances when she interacts with these certain entities, she gets badly beat down, like horribly. One specific instance, or one better one I would say, is Doom. Her interaction with Doom was really like clarifying, as she tried throwing him off the comic book page as she perceived the world in a different way. Keep that keyword in mind. So when she threw Doom off the comic book page, he just showed her that he could just walk back on and beat her up. So a lot of her like fourth wall breaking shenanigans just really have nothing to do with her AP. And he even goes as far as to say in her own realm that just because you perceive the world in a different way, it doesn't mean you're any stronger than me or anybody else.
Yeah, I just love that feat in general. It's just like, out of all the characters that are especially gonna just flex on Gwenpool and just like to put her in her place, and just like Doom is the one that eventually is like the one that tells her, it's like, yeah, like just because you have like can view the world in like a different way doesn't mean like you're any stronger than I am in this realm. It's like, so why don't you tell them a little bit more about this like this gutter space that Gwenpool has access to?
Oh, okay. So this gutter space, or like this white space in between the comic panels or in between the page, is where like Gwenpool's lair, or her domain, where like she roams around, right? And it's just like really overwhelmed space that's supposed to be super strong in Marvel, but in reality it's not. That gets debunked in her fight with Hulk and in her interaction with a couple of the characters. Characters just don't know of the existence of this place, but when they figure it out, it really just doesn't mean nothing. Back to the Doom statement, back to Hulk being able to hit it and affect the space, and hit it really hard to affect the space, and just anybody else just being able to exist in there. It doesn't matter who you are. Spider-Man and Deadpool did the same thing. The gutter space is really like meaningless and like diverse.
Yeah.
Has nothing to do with her AP.
Yeah, like going back to like the Hulk thing, like basically, why don't you like give more little context to that Hulk shit, because that's really funny. Like still thinking about it.
Yeah, so pretty much Gwenpool went in so an event where this entity named the Manipulator, who just turned out to be just another one of the writers, right, went around and literally just like got bored and just fought everybody in Marvel and beat them down. So he went and fought every single hero in Marvel. He beat them and captured all of them, Gwenpool included. Gwenpool went to go fight against this guy alongside every other superhero in Marvel and lost badly and got beat, captured, and chained up in some weird room. And the only way that she could escape was just like, page hopping into the gutter space, and she hid there to avoid the guy because she couldn't beat him. Then she recruited the help of Deadpool and Spider-Man to beat this guy, and literally started crying on how she couldn't save anybody. So yeah, real cool stuff there.
Yeah, just like she just got into this like deep depression because she couldn't defeat the Manipulators. Like, I'm gonna go defeat the Manipulator, like Spider-Man and Deadpool, and then she comes back all depressed and crying and shit.
It's just really cool.
She's
It's
just
not
like-
the only time she's cried too. Like if we want to go over another time she's cried, she almost got threatened with a retcon and then started crying and begging the authors to please give her another chance.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful comic moment right there.
Yeah, character that's supposed to be beyond fiction is crying and pleading to the authors to please don't retcon me, please. Like, I want to be in here. I want to be in the comics. It's like, totally beyond fiction there.
Yeah, it's like if you claim a character's beyond fiction, right, and consistently within the verse, they lose to entities who obviously are not. I think it's just common sense or common ground to say that your character's not beyond fiction. It's
Right.
just like consistent scaling within the verse. Like, just please look at it. Stop being disingenuous. She's not beyond fiction. The data books say where she's from, which I'll name Earth TRN 565, which is just another Earth that has like comic book characters. It's like comics. It's really nothing. Her AP is like, it's not shown to be anything of like boundless AP. She's more of like a street tier Marvel.
Yeah. Well, how about like that one time where like she like summons all of those like Marvel superheroes to that one island, and she like tries to flex on all of them. And why don't you give a little context to that?
Yeah, so she kidnapped every Marvel hero, or most of them anyway, and brought them to this island using her little like fourth wall page hopping shenanigans. And she brings them to this island and she asks them on this big podium, "You guys view me as a threat, right?" And they all just proceed to laugh at her. Very, very, very hard.
Yeah, just laugh at her. Like, do you remember like some of the superheroes that were there specifically that like were laughing at her?
She-Hulk, Captain America, Squirrel Girl, a couple members of the Avengers, Miss Marvel, you know, the usual cast.
Didn't you also say as well that like Squirrel Girl was there and that like she didn't want to embarrass Gwenpool? It's like, yeah, I would beat the shit out of her, but I don't like. Yeah. So I'm just gonna leave. Like, I don't want to. Yeah,
she basically like Squirrel Girl went out of her way to say, yeah, there's no point in me being here because I just beat you. So she like went away flying like some weird T-Rex. And then Gwenpool's like, no, she's right. She would beat me.
Yeah, Gwenpool's like, yeah, she would beat the shit out of me. Yeah, that's true. Oh, man.
And then, even more context to that comic, she has a literal mental, emotional breakdown with Miss Marvel on how, like, she's not really, like, a real person from the real world outside the comics. Because remember, a lot of the comic book characters don't know that they're comic book characters. So when her interaction with Miss Marvel, she says, "I'm a real person from the real world." And then Miss Marvel tells her, "Yeah, you're really not." And then she's like, "No, I'm not." And it's some weird interaction. She has a like really bad emotional breakdown and tries to fight Miss Marvel and gets instantly incapacitated.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Like, she tries to fight Miss Marvel and she's like, you know what, it's like, I have to put this kid in her place, and just beats the shit out of her.
No, she didn't really beat her. She just opened her hand and grabbed her and just like held her still. She really didn't do anything about it.
So just treat her like a child, basically. That's even worse.
Oh, yeah, boy. It's pretty bad.
Okay. So just as like Jester was saying, it's like Gwenpool, like where she comes from is like the same thing with like Superboy Prime, where basically Earth Prime is just it's basically another universe that's supposed to just be like ours, where no superheroes exist, and basically all the other universes are basically portrayed as like they're on like comic books, like, oh, like these are like, even like the monitors basically say that Earth Prime is just like kind of like these like record down history of what happens and what's going on between the other universes. It's not like it's in this whole other plane of existence that they're just looking down on all these other universes as fiction, and then Gwenpool happens to go to there, and then it's just like losing these characters. No, she's on the exact same plane as these guys. She just happens to travel to their universe, and she's just a huge L magnet. Like is there any like really good feats that you could possibly give Gwenpool, like if we were trying to give her the benefit of the doubt?
If I'd have to give her the benefit of the doubt, from what I've saw, right, her best feats would be, I guess, helping Deadpool and Spider-Man fight the Manipulator by like drawing all the comic book characters free, and then beating MODOK, and then her interaction with like Dormammu.
MODOK, the big floating head.
Yeah, he's basically Krang.
And then like the Manipulator, who already got like she got tied up and then like tortured or something.
She got beat up. She got tied up and she was about to get like her like essence drained or some weird stuff like that. But overall, it's just, you know,
Yeah,
she doesn't really have any like really good feats or scaling.
yeah, it's quite unfortunate. It's just like
Very.
it's just something I don't really understand. Like, well, oh, there's this other. I just remembered. There's this other feat that people tend to like wang a bunch, and that like basically that like the one above all is the one that like she couldn't like that he couldn't even like write the story for Gwenpool. So you want to give context behind that feat as well?
Oh my god, that's literally like a panel I encounter so much. It's so annoying because you just got to read what he says. He like just says, "I will no longer be writing for you anymore." It just means another author is gonna write for him. So if anybody doesn't understand how the one above all works in Marvel, I'll give you a quick rundown. He's composite author, or like composite writer, editor, and author, and all that stuff. So he's all of them, right? So for example, just because one of them thinks he's like, oh, one of them is weak, doesn't mean like it just scales to the entire entity as a whole, because there's stronger ones. But right, when you have an author says, oh, I just won't write for you anymore, it doesn't mean you're stronger than him. You have no feats to put you stronger than him. The statement is not suggesting you're stronger than him at all. He's just your writer. He's the guy in control of your narrative, and he's telling you, I will no longer be writing for you anymore. Somebody else probably is gonna end up writing your comic. So that's basically like,
Yeah.
the context behind that.
Someone says like, yeah, I'm just not gonna write for Gwenpool anymore. Yeah, apparently that's just the one above all stating, yeah, I can't write shit for Gwenpool. It's like she's just beyond me apparently, and it's just like even in that same, isn't it like in that same like panel as well? He's like, hi, my name is actually so and so, and not doesn't associate with himself with the one above all at all. It's just
No, they're just a bunch of like composite authors or editors, so you can still claim he's the one above all. Other people can argue otherwise, right? But
Right.
if you really understand the whole context of the Gwenpool comic, she's just trying not to get canceled and have some type of relevance in Marvel, so she doesn't get removed
yeah,
or like
it's-
retcon. Yeah, so the author saying he won't be writing for her anymore is just another thing that he's just suggesting that her comic is coming to an end and she's not relevant, so she's gonna get canceled.
yeah.
So that's like another interpretation for that scan as well.
Right. And it just kind of goes back to like, I remember like me and someone else were just like joking about how people were seeing that Gwenpool was just this beyond fiction level character, and they were just like she's basically like almost like the same like situation as Superboy Prime in that whole instance. And we're just like, man, I guess Superboy Prime's about beyond fiction now. But then people immediately started arguing for it. Unironically, we're just like, no, what are you talking? This is with a meme. Like, come on. Like, what's going on here? Like, it just does not make any sense to me. And like, something I also want to mention, like, I'm not going to name any names, but basically the originator for this argument, like, had already been basically slapped by 3 other people already. Like, basically he was slapped by this other guy like on the whole like copyright shit, because even if like the author states that like maybe if like the author decides like one day he wants to say that Gwenpool's the strongest character ever, and it's like, okay, well now he has to basically, oh, that's the other thing too, is that like people will try to claim that Gwenpool is just canon to any fan fiction, right?
Yeah,
Like,
they also
oh my
came from like
God.
this weird like comic.
And it's just like in that same debate, like Jester even had like a debate with like one of this guy's like goons, basically, and he even tried to like he's like, yeah, she's canon to all fan fiction, and even I was like in the audience, and I'm just like, okay, so what happens if I made like my own fan fiction where I have like Gwenpool state that the author doesn't know what he's talking about, and that anything that he says is just utter garbage and shouldn't be listened
It's contradictory, which is why like the scaling just makes no sense.
and then the same guy actually started. You're just like, are you posting hentai? And just started posting some random
my
hentai,
God.
and just like, oh, by the way,
He
guys,
literally posted pornography.
yeah, just like, oh yeah, this is. It's like, are you trolling right now? And it's like, apparently no, the kid was just like legit trying to scale Gwenpool, and it's like, I remember you telling me, it's like, oh, well, if they're gonna try to go that far, there are some comics where Gwenpool just gets straight up like like raped and shit. It's just like, okay, like, yeah, beyond like if you want to go reach that far and say that the fan fictions are now canon.
It was that same comic that happens there.
The one that he posted. Oh man.
Yes, bro. It was so strange because I was actually trying to like have like a normal debate, and he literally just like immediately asked him like what his premise was and like why he thinks like Gwenpool beats Superman. And he's like, yeah, she's just beyond all fiction.
Yeah, she's just beyond all fiction. It's like despite how many L's she carries around, and how like when she went to an entire island of superheroes, they all just laughed at her when she's like, yeah, you all think I'm a threat, right? It's just like,
it's ridiculous.
It's completely ridiculous. And then it's like, so that same guy that created this argument like had already been beaten on like the whole copyright shit and whether or not like other authors like, because other authors can easily make that same like, what happens if if Akira Toriyama comes out the next day and says that Goku's the strongest character in fiction? It's like, okay, well now you have these two like authors competing with each other about whether or not they're stronger, and it's like, okay, well which author do you value more? And it's like, basically you don't value either of them any more differently than the other. It's just like, okay, that's just their own interpretation. They think that maybe like Goku's the strongest or Gwenpool's the strongest. It's like at that point, it's like now you just have this stalemate. And it's like you can't have two characters that are just like the strongest. It's like one has to be the strongest. It kind of just goes
it just makes no sense.
And it just kind of goes back into like when people really start to argue whether or not like being like omnipotent was actually a good thing, like an actual and impressive feat to have is to be called omnipotent. But then you have like, it's like I feel like that's like what we're back at now. It's like we just replaced omnipotence with just being beyond all fiction now. Like that's what we're at now.
I'll elaborate on that author thing because I think that's a pretty good point that you brought up.
Yeah. An
author that knows nothing about another verse can't claim stuff about that verse.
Yeah.
So I'll give a good example. So let's use a random anime author for example. So Akira Toriyama. He's never read a DC comic in his life, right? But he says, yeah, Goku would just beat Darkseid because he just has instant transmission. But he doesn't know any of Darkseid's abilities or anything that Darkseid could do or any of his scaling, right? So his opinion on something he has no authority over would not be credible. So we'd be able to dismiss that in that instance.
Yeah, it's like if that like that one author from Marvel just wants to like make the claim that Gwenpool is like the strongest, like okay, you can maybe say like if you really want to like really bring that statement to like its utmost and really give it like the benefit of the doubt and say, yeah, this author has like the authority to make that claim. It's like, okay, then Gwenpool's the strongest in Marvel, but you can't then just say that like she's now like the strongest in fiction, because I can guarantee you that like the strongest in DC would probably beat most of characters in Marvel and probably still be
not even.
Yeah.
You see, I look, I'm a bit of a controversial guy myself. I rep a lot of DC over Marvel. A lot of people disagree with me, but I give actual scaling and reasoning why. So
yeah.
I'll leave that out there.
Yeah, and it's just like and it's like the one I've like been hearing from is that this same guy that like created this argument that basically like he has like gone back to his little like gang of like his butt buddies, and that essentially they now are creating this like tiering system for fictional transcendences, saying like,
oh my God.
And it's just like, oh, well, this character is now metafictional, and it's like, oh, well, now what's beyond that? It's like, okay, now it's petafictional, and if you don't know what petafictional is, it's just like it just comes from like petaphysics, basically. And then like this is what really started to make me laugh, and I'm just like, I can't believe that it's like I don't know if these guys are actually legitimate when they say this. It's like now like the top fictional transcendence is called non-fiction. It's just like
I haven't even heard of that. Like, I haven't even heard of that yet.
Like I get powerful. The whole powerful, yeah. I can get where people are starting to have like the misunderstanding that like metafictional, petafictional means something that's like non-fiction. It's like the highest tier of like transcending fiction. It's like, and then it's kind of just goes back in I'll be honest, one of the main reasons why I made one of my previous videos about like the 5 common mistakes that amateur power scalers make, where I literally talk about like the reality fiction interaction fallacy, that like supposedly like fictional characters are capable of interacting with the real world. It's like, okay, it's like if that's true, it's like if fictional characters aren't able to interact with the real world, then like I don't know, Gwenpool's able to give me a high five, like do they still stay fictional characters at that point? It's just like
And
Like
it's the thing that you bring up. I think even Versus Battle says it. We have qualifications for what makes you tier 0 boundless, right?
yeah,
And then they bring up, okay, so in the logic that these other people are using, a human from a real world would be tier 0 boundless, but they could
yeah,
barely move a car, and they're
yeah,
bound by dimensionality. So it makes no sense.
yeah. And it's just like, man, it just doesn't make any sense. Like, so if I were to like clarify to everybody, like, what does a fictional transcendence mean? It's easily just like, if I were to explain it to you in a very layman's terms, it's basically you, a 3D being, looking and reading like a two-dimensional comic. Like it's basically just like a dimensional like as a baseline and like in a vacuum, that it would just be like a transcendence, like from 2D to 3D. That's all it means. Like, obviously, if like I talked to the Jesters about this, obviously if it was like, say if you were like in the God sphere, and then you have like limbo, which like views everything below it as like non-fiction, it's like, okay, that's obviously, it just means like it's now it's like a dimensional tiering of difference, not like an outerversal difference or anything like that. And I have my own disagreements with Versus Battles and how they interpret things, but even they are able to like understand, like, trying to say that like characters are like beyond fiction, and it's just completely ridiculous, and it's not worth talking about. It's like it's just really lazy scaling at that point.
Yeah, it's just not going into like, making the effort of like, actually basing them off like legitimate, like non-disingenuous scaling on why this character is over this character, knowing the full extent of the cosmology of Marvel and DC, and scaling them on where they place into it comparable to other characters, and reading every like comic run. But I just think just like claiming that based off like 2 scans, and you haven't read the rest of like the characters runs, and not understanding anything. And that's a big thing with the Superboy Prime debaters, that really like, they kind of like rubbed me the wrong way. And what's really funny, I kind of started that whole wave because I started debating with Superboy Prime, right? And the arguments I developed
like, for
joke,
right?
Superboy Prime, it's like, it wasn't even memeing, but the arguments I was using weren't to that extent that they use them now. They're basically saying my character is like beyond all fiction, but the scaling I used for Superboy was that he'd just be like above most of the people in like DC, and like I based it off like that his punch is the equivalent of an author erasing you off the page. And I was like, they blame me.
Oh, you're talking about like the retcon punch, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I was using like retcon punch arguments like that, not like beyond fiction arguments, because obviously he wouldn't be beyond fiction because he's weaker than certain people in the verse. So,
but obviously some people misinterpreted that, and then just like, oh, I found another character that's beyond fiction. It's like, no, that was not the point of the argument, buddy.
That wasn't the whole purpose there, King.
Yeah,
I think you missed it.
Yeah, and it's the other thing too. Like, I've been told by like this other guy that like that these same people that are making like this fictional transcendence like tiering system, that's like they don't even believe this shit, and that basically they're only doing it because they just want to body a bunch of, because I'll be honest, I think most of the like debating community are complete idiots, and they're just like, they're trying to learn how to power scale themselves, so I don't blame most of them. So when you have these bunch of people that just want to body all these guys and just flex on them with like, oh, we have this new fictional transcendence tier, and they don't even believe it, they just want to flex on these guys, and now they're
really strange,
and it's just like, it's super completely disingenuous and dishonest, like, and a great example of intellectual dishonesty, because this is not the way that you should be scaling these characters, but you're deliberately going out of your way to to tell people this is how we should be scaling these characters, even though you know that it's wrong. Like, that's what intellectual dishonesty is. And it's just like, and we're just getting back into this like regressive like shit, where now we're no longer deciding how high these characters into a cosmology, like based off of their cosmology, like how powerful they are and how do they compare to it. Now we're just comparing on whether or not these characters like fictionally transcend the other, and it's like, if they don't have that, then they're just garbage. And I just don't really get it. And it kind of just goes back like this whole wave, I think, like, I mean, it really started to like I feel like the main arbiter of the whole thing really started out with like 4D movie Goku. But like
I'd say that's like the prime source.
Well,
I'd
yeah.
say it started here. It started with the
Well, I mean, like,
Mixie,
not like
yeah, Mr. Mixophilic is a big pioneer of this movie. Let's be very honest here.
Right. Well, 'cause I
And
was
even
just
me,
gonna
when
say,
I was
like,
when I was an early power scaler, I started doing this as well. But then,
Mhm.
I stopped using that type of scaling. I used to use this type of scaling with Dr. Manhattan back in my beginner, early days of debating. When I haven't even been debating for like a week or so. But I dropped it after like a month or two, and I actually started reading the comics and learning how to scale DC.
Like, even I was just trying to bring out 4D movie Goku because there was definitely a point in time where people legitimately thought that he was just like the strongest character, and like basically it was just based off of what he did in the movie, which was he fused with the audience. But of course, like most normies, they just take that scene super literally and they assume the highest end interpretation, and they're just like, yeah, he fused with IRL people in real life. If you were in the audience, you legitimately fused with a fictional character, and it's just like oh
Literally
my
stupid.
god, like I can't believe we're actually like believing this shit. Like, it's almost like I want to like if I were to ever debate somebody like this, then basically just like, okay, like I'm still waiting for like my Gwenpool to give me a high five. Like, where's my high five here? Like, if Goku can fuse with these like IRL people like into like this whatever being in his movie, then where's my high five, Gwenpool? Where's that at?
I guess nobody's beating Goku, man.
Ah, shit. Oh yeah, that's right. It's just nobody's beating Goku. He fused with the audience. He's the strongest character
in fiction.
Yeah.
It's just that's objective.
Yeah, and it's like I explained in my in my 5 common mistakes video. It's just like, that's like, if you a way to interpret that as, instead of like, oh, it's the literal audience, it's like it's just a fictional audience easily. It's just like that just fuse the not like Dragon Ball is fiction. If it's like, if you want to say anything, then sure, like Goku's like 4D or 5D in that verse. If you really want to like give him the benefit of the doubt and say that is like what it is, but again, it's just like these audience characters don't have any feats themselves. It's like, it's kind of just like, all we know from that encounter was Goku could not beat Broly in that instance, but then when he fused with the audience, he could, like, easily. It's like, that's all we know. It's just like this unquantifiable amp that he got from that. It's like, that's all we know. But yeah, it's just really lazy form of power scaling, and it's just like, I kind of just wanted to make this video kind of just because people keep asking me to talk about Gwenpool because they're really getting sick and tired of the whole wave, but at least on Discord anyway, that has dived down, but I've heard it's still being like discussed on TikTok, unfortunately. I don't know if you've like been aware of that.
Well, on TikTok, I haven't seen much of it. I know on Discord, it kind of just like died out because they just stopped banning the characters. People just don't care anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I think it just started dying out after my 2 very interesting debates with the said goon, which I'm not gonna name for specific purposes, right?
Yeah.
So after my 2 debates with him, people just saw the obvious debunks in my video. I literally had a whole channel like made for like these Gwenpool debunks, and like people just started using them and telling off the wave. They just agreed with me. The character is just not strong, and then people just had like a crazy like, oh my god, like brain fart realization. Wow, it's overranked character.
Oh, speaking of like banned stuff from like tournaments, like, because I'm also seeing people like they're banning like anything that involves with like fourth wall breaking ability, and it's just like, let's just go over that real quick. So basically it's just like people are banning like the fact, because people are just saying that like fourth wall breaking is just like this super OP ability, which I'll tell you right now, if you want like baseline fourth wall breaking, what it means, it's just like, oh cool, your character is now more socially aware, and that he's like aware that he is a fictional character himself. Wow, like it's really powerful, man. And anytime that someone asks you like what's really impressive about fourth wall breaking, like it's what the character does with that like social awareness is what makes that ability powerful. It's like just the fact that he fourth wall breaks like does not mean anything. It's
it's dependent on the context of the feat. So if, for example, let's just say a random Marvel character beat the manipulator, and the manipulator beat all of Marvel, and he embodies the fourth wall. He broke the fourth wall, but he got a AP feat off.
Yeah.
But it's not if like for example Goku or Krillin started talking to the audience or like broke a comic panel, it doesn't make them out of Versal because of that. That has nothing.
Yeah, it's
to
just
do
like,
with
what does
the
that
AP.
mean? Like, what does that mean if they do that?
Yeah, like whenever you like encounter debates like that, you just ask them, what does that scale to, or like why does that have anything to do with his AP? They usually crack under the pressure.
Yeah, it just like reminds me of like that scene where like what was her name? Like the what's the name of like the black-haired magician from DC? It was Zatanna.
Zatanna?
Yeah, that like where basically she becomes aware that she's a fictional character, and then she's like looking at the readers like, oh, you're reading like my comic or something, and like she presses her hand up against the comic. It's just like, oh, cool. She's now aware that she's like being watched basically by somebody else. It's like, oh man, that's powerful right there. It's like, oh, she's aware that somebody's watching her.
I mean, it just overall, it just has nothing to do with your feet. I think DC made a good like show of displaying that fourth wall breaking has nothing to do like with your AP or destructive capacity, or like what you're capable of, right? Because Cosmic Armor Superman literally reached out and talked about feeling the reader's breath or feeling him breathing, and then he literally just gets beat down by Mandrak and dies.
Yeah,
So, it just like makes no sense.
Yeah, that's the other thing. Yeah, I think that's pretty much anything that we wanted to talk about. So, in summary, everybody just don't be lazy when you're trying to like power scale shit. And also, if you hear anything about like this fictional transcending thing, or there's like different tiers to transcending fiction, like it's all bullshit. Like it's actually like the people that created it don't even believe it themselves. Like they're just doing it just to body normies. I'll lay that out clear right now. Don't listen to what they say. Try to actually scale characters based off of like where they scale in comparison to the cosmology, instead of whether or not they transcend fiction or not. So, Jester, thank you like so much for coming on, and just let you all know, Jester actually plans to eventually like start his own stuff on his own YouTube channel. So I'll leave that into like the description below. But until then, thank you all for watching, and class is dismissed.